So today we're going to talk about how to apply a finish to a wood veneer. Here we have a wood veneered surface. Now, wood veneers are real wood and they are treated just like real wood because they are real wood. So you can sand them, you can stain them, and you can put finishes on them just like you normally would. Now what you first start out with is a clean surface is what you want. It has to be clean, it can't be wet or anything, can't be dirty or have any oil on it. And the very first thing you do to that surface is you sand it. Now, this surface I've already sanded real nice and smooth, but to illustrate the point, I would sand it all the way with a 220 grit or so. What you do is you start with your coarser grits and you work your way to the higher and higher numbers, which are the finer and finer grits, and you end up maybe with a 220 or so. And then you can apply your finish. Now remember that one of the most important things you can do for yourself is give yourself a nice, good, new brush. Don't get a cheap brush and don't get a used brush. When you're trying to put a nice finish on something, you start with a good brush. Now we're going to brush the first couple of coats on today. But we end up spraying because that final coat will have absolutely no brush marks in it if it's done correctly. And we will sand between coats as well. So we start out with a good brush. And I like varnishes the best. You can use lacquers and shellacs, but they both have problems for durability, and I think a varnish is a good all-around finish. There are all kinds of fancy finishes out there, but for your purposes, probably stick with a varnish. You could find varnishes at the home centers and hardware stores. Look at the directions on the can. Make sure that you follow those directions. You probably, if you're going to work with a petroleum-based product, probably work in a ventilated area. You have to work with certain temperature limits, probably 50 degrees and higher, in a well-ventilated area, and not too high humidity. Now you don't put massive amounts of finish on your surface, and you use brush strokes that are usually in the direction of the grain, or if you do go against the grain, you can go against the grain to help get that surface coated, but you're going to end up going with the grain before you set that piece aside to let it dry. So like I say, you don't put massive amounts on there because you don't want it to run or what they call curtain or get any excess buildups. If you have a nice thin coat that goes on the first time and from each time thereafter, it helps you in the end to have a good product. So that first coat goes on, and what you do is you let it dry, and a varnish might take 24 hours. Then, after it has dried, once again, you're going to sand it. And this is a 220 grit. You can use whatever grit you want, but generally you're going to go to the finer and finer grits with each successive coat. And the object is to get a good smooth surface. Take care of anything that's not quite smooth on there or has built up with, maybe you got a little fleck of dust or something like that. You can actually leave the sanded finish on there. You can wipe it off if you want, but it doesn't hurt anything to leave it on. You put your second coat on just kind of like you did the first. Like I said, you can go against the grain if you want, but you're going to finish it with the grain. The final brush strokes are going to be with the grain, and you don't want to overkill it with too much finish. You want to be a little bit stingy with it. It's going to give you a better result in the final analysis. Now, you can put more than we're going to put 3 coats today. You can put more than that if you want. Some people put many more. The final coat, after you allow that second coat to dry, once again you sand it. Make sure you get it nice and smooth. And anything that's not smooth, you get it smooth. Okay, now that's kind of a quick sanding. You probably might want to do it more faster than that, or longer than that. Now in this case, what I'm going to do for the final coat here, I am going to spray this because if you spray it, you're going to have absolutely no brush marks, and if you do it correctly, your finish will be much better in the final analysis here. Now you stand back a little bit and you go in some even swiping motions. Kind of look at what you got going here, and you just don't want to get too much on there. And then that's it. Let that dry. You can finish it off with very, very light sanding if you want, which will probably dull it down a little bit. Or you could use some rotten stone on it, pumice. There's all kinds of ways and techniques you can use after you have applied that final coat. Steel wool, there's all kinds of things you can do. And if you make a mistake, you can put another coat on it. So that's the quick and easy lesson on finishing wood veneers. And by the way, we did this with the veneer mounted to the substrate. You can finish these veneers ahead of time before you mount them. That's your lesson for today. It's pretty easy.